Ever since I made my videos going over the Super Brawl titles, I've been flooded with requests to cover more cartoon fighting games, and to be perfectly honest, I've not really taken a look at most of them. The reason I looked at the Super Brawl games in the first place was just my personal history with them, how much I enjoyed playing them as a kid, and the other games just didn't have that same kind of appeal to me. However, in doing some research for other potential videos down the line, I did run into a Super Combo article discussing a game that I'd seen mentioned quite a lot in my comments, and hearing the story behind it, I just had to look into it further. Let me tell you the story of Teen Titans Jump Jousts, and how it intertwines with the rise of a small studio in Uruguay. ARF Games Studio is a small development company headed in Montevideo, Uruguay. It was founded by Rodrigo Alem Fernandez somewhere around 2016, mostly working on small mobile titles, trying to find their footing. But in 2018, they found their break. As I'm sure most people are aware, Flash was coming to a close, with it eventually going away for good in 2020. After 2014, Cartoon Network was looking to start moving away from Flash into other sources for their web games. And so, a new studio with proficiency in HTML5 games, such as ARF Games, had their opportunity to make games for the site. They made a few small titles in their first year, but of course, the main one we're here to talk about is Teen Titans Jump Jousts. Jump Jousts was the first fighting game ARF Games produced, and while it was definitely past my time, I can see why it has its fans. It's a super easy to pick up and play fighter, and it does have multiplayer, which is unfortunately kind of a rare thing for Flash games sometimes. The game is controlled entirely with 4 buttons: hop forward, hop back, attack, and super. Each character in the game also only has 3 normals, one while standing, one while jumping forward, and one while jumping back. Super builds on each hit landed and can be used out of normals, even whiffed ones to make them safe. The game feels very similar to Dive Kick, with how you can't move on the ground and have to rely on jumping and whiffing attacks to move. Unlike that game though, you don't die in one hit, but rather have 10 hits per round. This may seem like a lot, and it can be, but supers do multiple hits of damage, and characters can be super aggressive in the corner, so just be aware. The game is pretty light on modes, with just a simple 5-round arcade mode, an endless mode, and then versus. However, the roster is actually pretty nice. All 5 Titans are as playable as you'd expect, but in addition, beating arcade mode with each Titan unlocks a villain, bringing the roster up to 10 total. An interesting design decision is that the characters themselves don't actually fight, but rather they have a toy version based on them that they control, leading to some unique visual designs. The nature of the games means that characters are pretty simple, so there's not a ton of difference between them, but it does smatter enough to make some much better than others. Robin has some very good strengths, but is also held back quite a bit by his bad normals. His forward attack covers a lot of range and is quite good, but his standing attack has almost no range, and his back attack, while a decent movement option, is punishable on hit, meaning he has no good way to retreat without a super. His super does good damage on paper, throwing 3 projectiles that each do a good chunk, but landing all 3 is very difficult. Starfire is a strong character with an extremely powerful keep-away forward attack, an anti-air ground attack, and a very strong super that covers a ton of space, and in rare situations can even hit twice. Her back attack leaves a lot to be desired, but that's more than okay. Raven is a strong character that struggles to approach but can play defensively with her DP and back attack, and then push to the corner for near infinite combos with her forward attack. Her super covers basically everything in front of her, making it a great emergency button. Her only issue is her really floaty and slow jump, but you can work around that. Unfortunately, Cyborg doesn't really live up to that precedent. His back attack has an abysmal angle and is so slow, his forward attack has good movement but gets outranged by most other buttons in the game, and while his anti-air is quite good, it moves him backwards, making it hard for him to use it in neutral. His projectile super is generic but effective though. The last character in the based roster is Beast Boy, who is by far the most unique of the Titans. Instead of stopping in place or immediately altering his trajectory, Beast Boy's air normals increase your momentum. Attacking early in a jump makes you go super far and high, and attacking late in a jump keeps you close. The Frog is a great keep-away button, and the Wolf Pounce is an incredible button, potentially hitting twice if you get the angle right, and even without it is very tricky to navigate. His grounded attack has no range, and his super, while strong, likes to be finicky sometimes, but he's got a lot going for him. Going into the unlockable characters, Gizmo is a lockdown character designed to keep foes right where he wants them. Gizmo's neutral and back attacks have huge range, but are quite punishable, making them great to punish with, but also risky on whiff. Gizmo's forward attack, though, has very little range but dives at an angle and speed that is difficult to contest, especially after pressuring the opponent. This move ends up being crazy in practice, looping opponents in difficult to escape strings, even from mid-screen. The super is the icing on the cake, a time bomb that rewards great lockdown play with huge damage. Jinx is a bait and punish character with tools designed to respond to anything the enemy does. Her standing attack is a gigantic poke that forces the enemy to do something, as no other grounded attack in the game can contest it. Her forward and back attacks are both flip kicks with varied delays, with a starting hitbox allowing them to double as both air-to-airs and dodging punishes. Her super isn't much to write home about, but that's more than okay. Mammoth is an aggressive character designed to slowly push opponents to the corner, where you can get huge damage. His attacks are fast and hard to contest, but their lack of horizontal range makes them very hard to use. His super gives him a much needed option to close the distance, but you already need to land hits to get it, so it is quite difficult to utilize properly. On paper, Painbot is a very standard character with not much to talk about. His buttons are pretty average with the exception of his extremely small back attack. However, Painbot's super is absurdly large and fast, making it next to impossible to dodge or contest, especially if you can't move a full screen away. And lastly is Terra, the only character in the game with a projectile normal. Her forward attack hits a fixed distance on the ground in front of her, which while cool, isn't all that useful in a game where everyone's in the air. Her other attacks are quite nice with solid range, and the super, while effectively just an upgraded version of her projectile, covers enough space that it's an excellent way to punish landings. And that's the gist of what this game has to offer. You can play these 10 characters in arcade, multiplayer, or in endless mode once you've unlocked everyone. This game is simple, janky, and a little bit broken, but I quite like it. The concept feels like a fresh take on dive kick. The neutral is fun, and most characters have enough going on to make them approach situations in unique ways. It's no surprise this game quickly blew up on the site and became a cult classic. Because of that, that wouldn't be the last appearance of Teen Titans Jump Joust. A few years later, the sequel, Jump Jousts 2, was released in December of 2021. This version of the game kept a lot of the similarities to the previous version, with a few mechanics rebalanced for the sake of fairness. Painbot and Gizmo, rest in peace. However, there was one new mechanical change, the addition of special moves, that unlike your super, don't cost a meter and are instead on a cooldown. Most characters returning got a weaker version of their super, but some characters like Raven and Painbot did get brand new specials. Of course, the highlight of this game is the new content. Loads more stages, and of course loads more characters. 10 more were added to the roster for a total of 20, which is really impressive for a Flash game like this. These characters tend to play more extreme archetypes than the original cast, for better or for worse. And speaking of for worse, Bumblebee is a contender for the worst character in the game. She has a massive projectile special that's hard to dodge and can rack up damage if you camp the opponent out, but good luck with that when that's really her only good move. Her forward attack is a good hitbox but leaves her super vulnerable, her back attack is a fast footsies tool but is extremely small, and her neutral attack has over a second of end lag. Just don't use it. Her super isn't much better either, as its range is quite strange and limited. Aqualad is a grounded rushdown character that fares quite a bit better. His grounded attack is nothing short of awful, but his forward moving slide does give him a really decent approach. The highlight of his kit is the back attack, an extremely large, extremely fast water attack that depending on the matchup either hits opponents standing or prevents them from jumping entirely. With his more ground-focused kit, this tool lets you condition the opponents into getting options that would normally be extremely difficult to land, including his long-reaching ground projectile special and super. Kid Flash is probably the most annoying character in the game to fight against. His entire kit is built around his back attack, a teleport to the opposite side of the screen. This can let him stall out the game extremely well, and when used in combination with his powerful and fast grounded attack, is extremely hard to punish, even when anticipated. What makes this worse is that his special and super are both invincible dashes from full screen that punish most attacks. Kid Flash is able to force you to approach and has guaranteed punishes for all of your approach options. Batman is one of the more unique characters in the roster. He has some very interesting movement with his glide back attack and his fast dive kick forward attack that is a pretty huge hitbox. His attacks are built in a way where they feel like they're intended to hit twice, with his grounded attack and special having long active frames or multiple hitboxes respectively. His super teleport isn't half bad either, if a little bit inconsistent. Superman is a heavy zoning character who struggles to approach, but makes up for it with strong walling options. His super breath covers a large distance, but sends him backwards on use. His back attack swings a laser around, which is slow, but does have a hitbox instantly at the bottom. Unfortunately, he can't really approach well, and his slow uppercut special and grounded dig attack aren't helping. His super does cover a long distance, and can help approach in a pinch though. Harley Quinn is the zone breaker of the game. Her entire kit is built around her special and super, both of which throw bombs on the ground that walk the stage. These move slow enough that she can use her rolling forward attack to mess up the opponent's timing, or get into a position to air them with back attack. From there, she can set play with bombs while using her really fast ground attack to be a serious threat. Mother May I is probably one of the more forgettable characters on the roster. She doesn't have much going on, with a standard dive kick, a quick but low range back attack, and a pretty low range neutral attack. Her super also has such low range you just can't confirm into it at all, and it's not good at punishing things. She does have a projectile which throws in an arc, but in the air this just becomes a quick dive back to the ground, which really isn't all that useful. In contrast though, Trigon is absurd. His forward attack is unquestionably the best in the game, being a projectile covering the good portion of the screen and being basically unpunishable, at least without trading. His grounded attack is similar and also really good. His special is a teleport that lets him get back to the optimal range and punish things he otherwise couldn't. While his only super hits grounded, it lasts long enough that you can probably catch someone. The only attack he has that isn't exceptional is his back attack, which is just Ravens, but that's a very small downside. Slade is a mid-ranged fighter with disjointed sword attacks. His forward attack is a little awkward as it attacks at a sharp down diagonal, but it still has some really solid range. His back and grounded attacks are slow but cover a huge distance. Slade has a projectile special that only hits at a long range, forcing the opponent to stay close to you. Lastly, Slade has the best super in the game, shooting an extremely fast full-screen laser. And last but certainly not least, we have Brother Blood. Brother Blood is another mid-range character who's effectively a larger version of Painbot. His forward attack is nothing special, but his back attack is an amazing stage control and approach tool. His grounded attack is slow, but covers a massive range in front of him, making it excellent when the opponent is cornered. His special is a standard DP, and his super throws down various painful devices that cover a huge part of the screen and prevent the opponent's approach. With a total of 20 characters, there's a lot to play around with. Unfortunately, that's most of what there is to talk about this game. There's a new rival mode that's actually just arcade again with 10 characters instead of 5, but that's kind of it. To be honest, I like this game, I think it's solid, but I did get tired of playing it after a while. It's still the jump jousts action, but a lot of characters play in ways that just really slow the game down, like Superman or Kid Flash. That said, while still a little janky, this is much more balanced than the first and more than worth your time, especially with some friends. With the success of the first Jump Jousts game, ARF Studio decided to begin work on an original fighting game. This game was called Bearsus and was going to be an original fighter with a cast of a bunch of different bears, using the mechanics from the Jump Joust titles. However, the studio ran into issues when it came to developing the game, mostly due to the budget as they were developing out of pocket, so unfortunately, the game ended up shelved. Until Jump Jousts 2 released. After that, ARF Games had some extra money and decided to put it towards finishing the development of Bearsus. Unfortunately, this was not in the state it was initially planned in at all. Instead of a large variety of characters, all 8 characters are the same bear with slightly different moves and mechanics. That said, the game being made at all is awesome, and it does change some things in the formula that are pretty cool. For one, jump heights are way more pronounced. You had some control over how far you would jump by tapping or hold the button on Jump Jousts, but in Bearsus you can really notice it. This could also be due to the game's second big change, that being double jumps. By jumping in the opposite direction of your initial jump, you can jump a second time, opening up the door to a lot of mix-ups. This game is a lot more focused on those too, with true combos being few and far between, requiring you to pressure the opponent to get more hits. The actual combat has been simplified too, getting rid of the attack buttons entirely. Each character has 4 attacks, a forward and a back one out of a jump, and a forward and a back one out of a double jump. It's worth noting that you could do either attack out of either double jump, making your attack options a lot wider. To briefly touch on the 8 characters, they all play very similarly, but have a few gameplay quirks to make them more interesting. El Poderoso is the standard character with a slam, dropkick, claw swipe, and elbow drop. El Asombroso is basically the exact same, but the forward and backward attacks get swapped and the jump is a little bit higher. El Fabuloso is fast, but has very poor jump height. In contrast, El Talentoso can jump really high, but lacks a lot of the horizontal range, much preferring to hit other bears out of the air. El Hermoso has a fast backdash and 2 strong dive kicks. El Musculoso has the largest jump in the game, but in turn is slow with very punishable attacks. El Peligroso has a small horizontal grounded jump and a large vertical double jump for powerful options everywhere. Lastly, El Tenebroso has a very slow grounded jump and a much faster air jump. There really isn't much more to talk about. Again, they're all just very similar characters, so pick your favorite. This game is definitely a very interesting piece of history at the very least, but I think it's the weakest of all of Arc's fighters, and while the concept is fun, I can't say beating arcade mode with 6 of the 8 characters to unlock them all didn't get old. There's just not a lot of variety here, and it really is the same as the previous titles in a lot of ways. Still, it shows our studio's first attempt to branch out on their own, and this is a studio that keeps improving on their ideas. Even something as rough as this can be worked into something incredible. And improve they did. After the release of Bearsus, ARF began work on a new original fighter. This one has smaller scope than Bearsus' original idea, using stickmen instead of super detailed bears. Instead of the game's previous 8 characters, this game would have only 6. And most importantly, the game would fix the biggest problem with Bearsus, the lack of character variety. The resulting game was Stick Fighter. Let me just say up front, I think this is the best game so far. Playing this after Bearsus, I was worried I was starting to burn out on these, but this is the kind of game I just wanted to keep playing more and more. It's really something special. You only start with 1 of the 6 characters this time, but unlike all the other ARF games, you get money to unlock characters by playing any mode, allowing you to play however you feel like. The game retains the gameplay of Bearsus as well, with double jumps and 4 attacks, but no specials. However, this time around, movesets feel way more unique to compensate for the lack of specials, and arguably are more unique than even Jousts 2's kits. Sticky Steve is the starting character and designed to be the baseline to understand the game. He's a very basic rushdown with a far-reaching punch that rockets him across the stage and a shorter, faster kick move. After a double jump, he can come plummeting down with an axe kick or punish opponents higher up with a flip kick. Jack Chumbo is the most standard zoner the game has. He has huge gun normals that let him control the space or create distance. With this distance, he can jump high into the air and attempt to snipe the opponent from afar. Scarmichael is another fairly standard character with huge sword normals that cover a massive horizontal distance in front of him. With the height advantage, he can come plummeting down with gigantic sword swings that cleave through anything below him. Those first 3 characters are fairly simple to help you get a grip on the mechanics of the game, but the last 3 have very strange and unique quirks to them, not the least of which is Mike Zapapo. In a game all about air combat, Mike can't jump. Instead, he's a boxer who dashes along the ground. His buttons are the fastest in the game, letting him punish almost anything, but you have to put his good footwork to use to be able to successfully dodge and counterattack. This game plan is helped by the fact that his dashes have invincibility frames, though. His forward and back attacks have very low range, but if you double jump by canceling a dash into another one, you get a huge lunge punch and uppercut, letting you punish moves much easier. Asphalta is the Shoto of the game. Their forward attack is a flying kick, but everything else is the Fireball, DP, and Tatsu respectively. Having an actual fireball in this game is a lifesaver, and combined with the huge active frames of their other moves, they're an absolute force to be reckoned with. And lastly is Samuel Ray, a samurai character with near full screen range. Samuel's attacks have very extreme hitboxes, being very thin but covering a large portion of the screen. Whiffing these leads to an almost guaranteed punish, as aside from the back attack, the end lag is crippling. Trying to line up your attacks and mixing up the timing to avoid a reaction is crucial. You can hit the opponent from anywhere, just don't miss. I wish I had more to say about this game, because the gameplay is very similar to everything that's been described before, but I can tell you across the board, this game is such an upgrade. The animations are smooth and snappy, the gameplay is fast and crazy, characters feel more unique and fun, the visual effects and sound design are top notch, especially for a browser game. This is top of the line, and a game you should absolutely check out. It really goes to show what ARF Games is capable of, and that will just continue on in their future endeavors. And that brings us to our last title for today. After their last original title, Cartoon Network commissioned one more Jump Jousts game, Jousts Jam. This game is brand new and actually isn't even available in the US yet. This game is a complete overhaul of the series built from the ground up. You may have noticed the omission of Teen Titans from the title this time, and that's intentional. The game has expanded beyond the Teen Titans universe to other Cartoon Network properties. This time around, gameplay has been changed completely, with a few major additions to the gameplay. Let's start with a couple of the subtle changes and then work our way up to the big ones. First off, certain moves now can inflict a stagger state. Most characters have at least one, but they can be tied to specific conditions or have strange timing. Instead of flying away, the opponent will be flung into the air and slowly float back down to the ground. The opponent does not have invincibility in this state, allowing you to get another hit in if you're quick. Out of all of the games we've talked about today, this mechanic is the first one designed for assisting combos. The game doesn't have traditional links or cancels, and combos up to this point have just involved hitting the opponent before they have a chance to react or punish. This is a true, intended combo state. The game also has an actual defensive option for the slower characters, as most of them have attacks with armor now. Being able to take a hit or two of armor is huge, and usually means the opponent has to leave you alone. This is the case for a lot of supers to allow them to not be interrupted so easily. And speaking of supers, they've been completely revamped this time too. You have actual meter this time around. Special moves cost 1 bar of meter while supers cost 4. You can have up to 5 and meter gain is fast, so feel free to be aggressive, especially if your character has a really good special. You can now bring assist characters into the game, which can be used every so often but have a big cooldown. These are all fairly situational but can provide you with a crucial tool to make up for any weaknesses your characters may have, or just provide fun strategies. Alright, we've gone long enough without addressing the elephant in the room, and that's the last thing we have to talk about. Matches in this game only have 1 round. This is because this is no longer a 1v1 game, but rather a team game. You can tag in your partner at any time, including during a jump or attack, to have them come in with an attack of their own and switch places with you. Your opponent can punish this, so be careful. Having 2 characters opens up the floodgates to all sorts of crazy stuff. While there sadly aren't a lot of tag team combos, this effectively doubles your character's options, letting them switch to a better toolkit for a bad matchup, or escape a fight if they're running low on health. Characters can also fill different roles on a team this way. Some characters have big normals that can help build meter faster, while others can sink in tons of damage with enough meter. The possibilities are endless, and that's what makes this game all the more charming. Now, let's get into the roster, as this time things have changed up quite a bit. The only returning characters are the original 5 Teen Titans, and they've been completely reanimated. Gone are the stand-ins. This time you actually get to play as the Titans themselves. I'm not going to go into too much detail, as they do play very similarly to their Jump Jousts 2 incarnations, but there's a few small changes I want to highlight in particular. Specifically, Cyborg and Raven got some new movement abilities. By holding a jump button, Cyborg will do a mid-air jump, changing his momentum, and Raven will hover for a short time. Both of these allow these 2 characters who did struggle before to approach in new ways and mix up their game plans. Aside from the returning cast, 4 newcomers were added based on other franchises that Cartoon Network owns. Bugs Bunny is designed to be an obnoxious character that keeps you far away. Not only does he have a projectile normal, but that said projectile inflicts a stagger, giving him some incredible combo potential. However, his options up close are quite lacking, with his grounded attack being a counter and his forward attack being too slow to punish a lot of moves. His special lets him dig away from the fight to regain his zoning advantage, and his super stuns for a very long time, letting you cause your wildest desires. 505 is the first grappler in the series and plays a simple but effective game plan. His special inflicts more damage than everyone else's to give him the impact of playing a grappler. However, his slow movement means he has to rely on his normals to get in, including a huge belly flop and an armored roll. His super is a generic run forward, and his grounded attack is just a standard get off me tool. His kit is simple on purpose, but getting a staggering roll into a command grab will show you why 505 is more than worth running on your team. Finn is definitely one of the weaker characters this time around. His game plan is based around making the opponents wake up a nightmare. His powerful flying kick and spinning arm moves give him horizontal momentum that can leave him closer to a downed opponent. This lets him set up his sword swing attack, which staggers but only on the late second hit. His special and super are both projectiles that let him interrupt the battle from a distance, but they aren't really anything special. He can do a lot once he's in, but getting the proper setup is like finding lightning in a bottle. The last newcomer is Kelsey, another sword character who plays quite a bit differently from Finn. Her normals all have great range but can be punished easier on whiff. Her back attack swings down, staggering on the late hit. What makes her really fun is her special and super. Her special is a counter, which at first doesn't seem like anything special. However, keep in mind that when the opponent tags in, they have a hitbox and can thus be countered. If you can force the opponent into a situation where they must tag, you get free damage. Her super covers the whole screen in a blinding sword swing, giving you good damage off any stagger from anywhere on screen. She's a force to be reckoned with. When building a team, you also get to pick one of 4 assists, all of which change how you play drastically. BMO covers a small area on the screen with a damaging field. This field also reflects all projectiles that opponents throw, letting you punish zoners better. Yosemite Sam throws a dynamite projectile, working as set play the opponent must respect and making it unsafe to stay at long distances. Penumbra reaches out very far and grabs the opponent, stunning them. This is the best assist in the game for combos, but has a major downside that it does nothing at point blank. If you can keep your opponent away though, you can get some serious combo damage. Lastly is Banana Joe, who runs across the screen. If he hits the opponent, they will slip, which causes a snackback to the opponent's other character. This is especially good on Kelsey, as mentioned before. This gives her a free way to get a counter. Choosing an assist will often define your playstyle, and all of them have their moments. The one downside to this game is that it is the least content-rich of them all. Not only does the game only have 9 characters, but the game doesn't have an endless mode. There's only arcade, multiplayer, and training mode. Yeah, there's a whole training mode in here, complete with slowdown and hitbox viewers. If you seriously want to learn setups, now you can. Okay, so hi, quick edit here. In the time it took me to make this, the game got a ton of updates. Most notably, Endless Mode did get added back into the game, alongside some new stages, characters, and assists. Scrappy Doo Assist is a counter assist that can help you control space, whereas Grim Assist covers a huge portion of the screen horizontally. Shaggy is a defensive zoning character who controls the fight with tricky movement and projectiles. The Baby Bears are a trio character with rotating specials and a versatile kit. And last but not least, Garnet is a powerful bruiser character who oppresses the foe with fast buttons and long range. I'm excited to see what happens as the game expands even more. The game is still fresh, so it's hard to tell the lasting appeal of this game, but I can tell you that as of now, the game has a slowly growing competitive scene built around its crazy neutral and simple but fun combo game. While the other games did to a lesser extent, I can genuinely see this one popping off. The mechanics are incredibly solid this time around, the visuals are beautiful, and the new mechanics add a lot more depth than just mashing on someone's wake up. The devs seem thrilled with the support so far too, with potential for more updates to the game in the future. I'd love to see what new content could do for this game, or potentially even better. I think ARF has the potential to go big places, and I'd love to see them expand beyond the browser to a fully fledged fighter with more depth, or even just Cartoon Network Jump Jousts Deluxe. Do I think that's in the cards right now? Maybe not, but I think the studio is absolutely worth keeping an eye on, as I'm sure their next project is going to be something really special. But with that, thank you for taking a trip with me through the world of Teen Titans Jump Jousts. I hope you enjoyed learning about this series, and I hope you decide to check it out. It's all free after all. If you do, let me know what you think of them. Until next time.